Before we begin, please leave a comment, share your thoughts and let us know your lessons learned in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. The church was bathed in the golden light of the late afternoon sun. Its rays streaming through the towering stained glass windows and casting a mesmerizing kaleidoscope of colors on the marble floor. A soft choir hummed a traditional hymn in the background, and the air was thick with the heady scent of fresh flowers and incense. The sound of guests settling into their pews, the gentle shuffle of shoes against polished floors, and the faint whisper of the wind outside filled the sacred space. Every inch of the church felt alive with anticipation. Friends, family, and familiar faces filled the pews, each one gathered for a single purpose: to witness the union of Emily Parker and Ryan Blackwood. The air was electric with the excitement of the occasion, and for Emily, it was the culmination of a lifelong dream. Her heart raced as she stood at the altar, her breath shallow, her hands trembling ever so slightly as they rested on the pristine white fabric of her gown. She had always dreamed of this moment, and now, as the time had finally come, she felt an overwhelming sense of love, peace, and joy. The bride's smile was radiant, as real as the deep connection she felt with Ryan. He was her everything, the man who had brought light into her world during her darkest days. He had been her rock, her unwavering support, and in him, she had found a love she never thought possible. His eyes always seemed to look at her as though she was the most precious thing in the world. And the way he touched her, always gentle, always caring, made her believe that they were meant to be. Ryan Blackwood stood beside her, his tall, broad figure commanding attention in the perfectly tailored black tuxedo. His jaw was sharp, his features chiseled with the kind of rugged handsomeness that made heads turn. He looked every bit the handsome, successful man Emily had come to adore over the years. His eyes, dark and intense, locked onto hers with an emotion she couldn't quite place. It was the same feeling she always had when they were together, safe, cherished, loved, but today, there was something else lingering in his gaze. Something just beyond the surface. A hint of discomfort, as though his mind was not entirely here with her. She pushed the thought away. It was just nerves, she told herself. It had to be. Father Daniels stood before them, an old man with a face lined with wisdom and experience. His hands were raised, palms open, his gaze kind but focused. A steady presence amidst the whirlwind of emotions that swirled in the room. He had conducted hundreds of weddings over his long years as a priest. Yet even now, there was something about today that felt different. Something unsettled him, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Perhaps it was the unusual stillness in the groom's posture, or the way Ryan avoided eye contact when he recited his vows. There was something off. Father Daniels brushed the feeling aside. He had witnessed nervous grooms before. He thought, this was nothing more than pre-wedding jitters. The ceremony proceeded as expected. Father Daniels began with the familiar words. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here in the sight of God and these witnesses to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony. His voice was steady, comforting, like the reassuring hum of a lullaby. Emily's voice trembled slightly as she recited her vows, her hands trembling as she reached for Ryan's. She had written them herself, pouring her heart into every word. Her love for him was boundless, and she spoke those words as if they were sacred, as if they would carry them both through the rest of their lives. She promised to stand by him, through thick and thin, for better or for worse. But when it was Ryan's turn to speak, something shifted. There was a slight pause, too brief to be noticed by most. But Father Daniels caught it. It was as if Ryan had to force the words out. When he smiled, it was polite, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. His voice was calm, measured, and a little too rehearsed. And when he said, I do, it seemed almost too perfect, too calculated. Emily didn't notice, she was too caught up in the magic of the moment. Her mind focused solely on the man she thought she knew so well. But Father Daniels, who had seen every variation of a wedding, knew that something didn't sit right. The ceremony continued without incident until the moment of the blessing. Father Daniels lifted his hand to bless the rings, a gesture meant to symbolize the eternal nature of the vows being made. As he glanced at Ryan's left wrist, a flicker of recognition flashed in his mind. The cuff of Ryan's tuxedo had slipped up slightly, exposing just a fraction of his skin. And in that fleeting moment, Father Daniels caught sight of something he wasn't meant to see, a faint circular tattoo. It was small but distinct, and though it was partially hidden, it sent a shock through the priest's body. The insignia was all too familiar. Father Daniels had seen that symbol before. During his mission trip to Sudan in 2007. It wasn't a religious mark. Nor was it the kind of tattoo one might get on a whim. No, this was military. A symbol used by an elite Black Ops unit, an organization that dealt in secrecy, danger, and violence. Father Daniels felt a chill run down his spine. He had worked with this unit, witnessed their operations, and seen the aftermath of their missions. This wasn't just a symbol. This meant something. It meant Ryan had a past. One he hadn't shared with Emily, and that past was now threatening to surface. The priest's heart raced, his palms suddenly damp. He tried to focus, to finish the ceremony, but his thoughts raced with the weight of what he had just discovered. His eyes flicked from Ryan's wrist to Emily's innocent, trusting face. How could he tell her? How could he break the illusion of the perfect man she had built around Ryan? The moment stretched on, the air thick with tension. Father Daniels cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. His voice wavered slightly as he continued. "Forgive me," he said, offering a forced smile. "Just a moment, please." He stepped back, moving away from the altar as confusion rippled through the congregation. Naomi's face twisted in concern. "What's going on?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sudden murmur of whispers that filled the room. Father Daniels turned to the best man. A quiet conversation ensued, and the man nodded, disappearing through the side door. Emily stood frozen, her heart beginning to beat faster. She looked toward Ryan, but he remained unmoved, almost unnervingly calm. Father Daniels returned to the altar, his face now serious. "I need to pause the ceremony for a brief moment," he said, his voice firm. "There are matters that require my attention." The room erupted in hushed gasps as the tension in the air thickened. Something was wrong, but what? As Emily stood there, a knot forming in her stomach. She had no idea how close she was to uncovering the truth about the man she was about to marry. The church fell silent as Father Daniels led Ryan down the side aisle, away from the waiting congregation. The music had stopped. The soft hum of the choir had faded into the background, leaving only the faint echo of footsteps against the marble floor. Naomi remained frozen at the altar, her heart pounding in her chest. She turned to look at the crowd, seeking reassurance, but found only puzzled faces. Her mother, sitting near the back, was pale, her eyes wide with concern. The murmurs rippling through the pews were growing louder, but all Naomi could focus on was Ryan's back as he walked away, his posture stiff and unreadable. She hadn't noticed the pause in the ceremony, the way Father Daniels had hesitated when he saw the tattoo. To her, it had all seemed like a perfectly ordinary wedding, filled with joy and excitement. But now, as she stood there alone, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. A knot of anxiety twisted in her stomach, gnawing at her every thought. The way Ryan had acted, his smile that hadn't quite reached his eyes, the unnatural calmness in his voice, now that she thought about it. It all seemed too perfect, too rehearsed. And Father Daniels, the one man she trusted to guide her through this moment, had suddenly paused, his face betraying a flicker of something darker. The doors to the side chamber closed softly behind Ryan and Father Daniels, and Naomi's world seemed to stand still. She could hear nothing but the pounding of her own heartbeat, a constant reminder that her life was about to change. She didn't know how or why, but she knew something was wrong. The silence was deafening. Inside the dimly lit chamber, Father Daniels stood in front of Ryan, his face grave with suspicion. The small, private room smelled of incense and age-old wood, a far cry from the joy-filled space just beyond the door. For a moment, the two men simply stood there, the tension in the air palpable, thick with the unspoken truth that Father Daniels had just uncovered. Ryan, the man who had stood before Naomi just minutes ago, promising her a life of love and devotion, was a stranger to the priest. He wasn't who he claimed to be. The tattoo on Ryan's wrist, something Father Daniels had seen years ago, was no mere decoration. It was a symbol used by a Black Ops unit, a clandestine group of soldiers who dealt in secrecy, violence, and covert operations. Father Daniels had been involved in trauma recovery for years, and the mark Ryan bore was too familiar. It wasn't a symbol one could easily forget. especially when it represented years of bloodshed and danger. Father Daniels studied Ryan with a piercing gaze. "You need to tell me who you really are," he said, his voice calm but sharp. His words like a blade cutting through the thickening tension. Ryan's jaw clenched, and for a moment, his eyes narrowed as he looked away. He hadn't expected to be found out. Not so soon, and certainly not in such a public way. "I'm the groom," Ryan muttered, his voice low, the words coming out as if rehearsed. But Father Daniels wasn't fooled. There was more to this man than met the eye. "Don't insult my intelligence, son," Father Daniels replied, his voice firm. "That mark on your wrist isn't something just anyone carries. I know what it means. You were part of a unit. A dangerous unit." Ryan's eyes flickered with something like regret. But he remained silent for a moment, the weight of his past pressing down on him. "You weren't supposed to notice," he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I left that life behind a long time ago. I thought I could bury it." Father Daniel's expression softened, but his eyes remained hard. "You didn't bury it, did you? It followed you here. And now, it's threatening the woman you promised to love and protect." The priest's words were sharp, filled with the authority of someone who had seen too much in his years of service. Ryan sighed, the weight of the confession hanging heavy in the air. He leaned against the wooden table in the corner of the room, his posture weary, as if the past he had tried to escape had finally caught up with him. "My name isn't Ryan Blackwood," he said quietly. "That's just part of the new life. The safe one. The one I built to keep her safe." Father Daniel's heart sank as the truth began to take shape. "Witness protection?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "No," Ryan responded, his voice tinged with a bitterness that only a man who had been running from his past could understand. "Witness protection is for people who testify. I didn't testify. I escaped. I left a life behind that I couldn't control. And I built a new one. But Naomi, she doesn't know. She thinks she's marrying a man who sells software. She has no idea who I really am. Who I used to be." Father Daniel's thoughts raced as he processed Ryan's words. This wasn't just a case of a man running from the law. No, this was something darker. Something that had been buried for years, waiting for the right moment to resurface. And now, it had. Naomi was about to marry a man with a history of violence and secrecy. A history that had followed him right to the altar. But why marry her? Why bring her into this? Father Daniels asked, his voice a mixture of disbelief and concern. "I thought if I made it public, if we got married and made it real, they'd back off," Ryan said, his voice tinged with desperation. "I thought maybe I could put everything behind me. But when I saw her today, standing there, so beautiful, so innocent, I realized how wrong I was. The past doesn't go away. It doesn't stay buried. It follows you, no matter how hard you try to outrun it." Just then, the door to the side chamber creaked open, and the best man entered, his face pale with fear. "She's outside," he whispered. "I saw her. She's circling the parking lot. Black SUV, tinted windows." Ryan's fists clenched, his body tensing with the recognition of what this meant. The woman from his past had found him. She was here, and she wasn't alone. Whoever had sent her was watching, waiting for the moment Ryan would slip up. The past wasn't just a memory anymore. It was a ticking time bomb. And Naomi was standing right in the middle of it. Father Daniels turned to Ryan, his voice resolute. "You need to tell Naomi. You have to tell her the truth now, before it's too late." Ryan's eyes were filled with guilt and fear. "She'll never look at me the same way. She deserves better than this. She deserves a life of happiness, not the danger I brought to her doorstep." But Father Daniels wasn't about to let Ryan walk away from this. "She deserves the truth," he said firmly, "and you owe it to her to give it to her now." Ryan nodded slowly, as if the weight of the decision had finally hit him. They both turned toward the door, ready to face the woman who had been waiting at the altar. Unaware of the storm that was about to break around her, the church was filled with the anxious hum of murmuring voices as Ryan and Father Daniels returned to the altar. The guests, still seated, watched them with wide eyes, their gazes filled with confusion and curiosity. Naomi stood at the altar, her heart pounding in her chest, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. She had been left alone for what seemed like an eternity, her fingers nervously clutching the edges of her wedding gown. Her eyes searched for answers, but all she saw were the faces of strangers, family, friends, the people who were supposed to be sharing in her joy today, but instead, Everything felt like an intrusion. Her mind raced as she replayed the events in her head. The ceremony had started with so much promise. She had been so sure. So certain that Ryan was the man she was meant to marry. The man she had known for years. The man who had shown her nothing but love and devotion. But then the pause. The awkwardness in Father Daniel's voice. The strange, unreadable expression on Ryan's face when he had looked at her. It was as if something was simmering beneath the surface. Something dark. Something she couldn't see. Ryan's face was unreadable as he walked toward her. His every step deliberate. His body tense with the weight of what he had just confessed. Naomi's eyes locked onto his, searching for the man she had come to love. But instead, she saw a stranger, a man with a haunted look. His brow furrowed in guilt and fear. As he stepped up to the altar, he looked down at the ground, unable to meet her gaze. For a moment, everything was still. The weight of the silence was suffocating, pressing down on Naomi's chest as if the air itself had thickened. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, but the feeling of unease gnawed at her. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. This was supposed to be one of the happiest days of her life. But instead, it felt like a dream that was slipping away, out of her control. Finally, Ryan's voice broke through the silence, low and raw with emotion. "Naomi," he began, his words faltering. "I didn't want this. I didn't want to ruin today. I wanted to give you the world. But there's something you need to know. Something I should have told you before all of this." Naomi's heart skipped a beat, and her breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What's going on, Ryan? What aren't you telling me?" Ryan hesitated, his hand trembling as he reached out toward her. But he pulled back before their fingers could touch. My name isn't Ryan Blackwood," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of the truth he was about to reveal. "I'm not who you think I am. My past, it's not something I wanted to bring into this. I never wanted you to know about it. But now you have to know." Naomi felt as if the ground beneath her was shifting. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice shaking now, her body tense with disbelief. She had always known there were things Ryan kept hidden. But this was beyond anything she could have imagined. "I've been running from who I really am," Ryan continued, his eyes finally meeting hers, filled with a mix of guilt, fear, and something darker. "I was part of a black ops unit. A military group that did things I can't explain. I left that life behind. I disappeared. I tried to start fresh. I tried to be someone I could be proud of. But my past, it's been following me. And today it's caught up with me." The words hung in the air between them, and Naomi felt the weight of them crash down on her. Her mind reeled as she tried to process what he was saying. The man she had loved for so long. The man who had held her when she cried. Who had shared her dreams and hopes. He wasn't the man she thought he was. He had been hiding a dark, dangerous secret, and she had been blind to it. Naomi stepped back, her heart aching as the truth began to settle in her chest. What do you mean, black ops? Are you saying you're some kind of killer? Some kind of soldier?" Her voice trembled with fear and confusion. "How could you keep something like that from me? How could you lie to me all this time?" Ryan closed his eyes, the pain of her words hitting him like a physical blow. "I didn't want to lie to you. I wanted to be the man you thought I was. The man who brought you coffee every morning. Who made you laugh when things were tough. But the truth is, I was never that man. I was someone else. Someone who did things I can never take back. And now it's all coming back. The woman who's been following me, she's from my past. She's here because they know I've been trying to run. And they won't stop until they find me." Naomi felt a chill run through her, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. Her mind flashed back to the moment in the church when she had seen the strange tattoo on Ryan's wrist. The same tattoo that Father Daniels had noticed. It wasn't just a decoration. It was a symbol of danger, of violence, of a past that Ryan had tried to erase. And now, that past was threatening to tear apart everything they had built together. "Who is she? Who are they?" Naomi asked, her voice trembling. She could feel the panic rising in her chest. The world she had known slowly crumbling away. Ryan's voice was filled with desperation. "I don't know, but I saw her outside the church. Naomi, she's the one who's been watching me. The one who knows what I've done. And if she's here, it means they're not far behind. They're going to come for me. And they're going to come for you, too. I never wanted you to be part of this. I wanted you to have a life without fear, without danger. But now, there's no way out. The past won't let me go. The weight of his confession was almost too much for Naomi to bear. She stood there, feeling as though the ground had been ripped from beneath her, her mind struggling to comprehend the enormity of what Ryan had just revealed. The man she had loved, the man she was about to marry, was part of a world she couldn't even begin to understand. But then, through the fog of fear and confusion, one thing became clear: she wasn't going to let him face this alone. Ryan looked at her, his eyes filled with doubt. Naomi, I never wanted you to know this. I never wanted you to see me like this. You deserve so much better. Naomi's heart clenched, her love for him stronger than ever. She reached out, taking his trembling hand in hers. You made mistakes. You were someone else, but that's not who you are anymore. You've changed. You've fought to be someone worthy of me. And I love you. I love you for who you are now, not who you were. Ryan looked at her, his eyes wide with shock. But Naomi didn't let go. And if we're in danger, then we face it together. We deal with this together. I'm not going to run. Not from you. Not from this. The church was silent, the tension in the air palpable. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then, slowly, Ryan's expression softened. He pulled her closer, his arms wrapping around her as if she were his lifeline. Naomi buried her face in his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her ear. I don't deserve you, he whispered. You don't have to, she replied softly. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. From the back of the church, the woman in the navy coat stepped into the aisle, her eyes cold and calculating. She took a long, lingering look at the couple before turning and walking out. The black SUV that had been circling the church drove off into the distance, the threat for now disappearing as quietly as it had come. Father Daniels, who had been watching from the side, stepped forward with a relieved smile. Shall we continue? He asked. The congregation, still in shock, nodded hesitantly. The silence was broken only by the soft rustling of the fabric of Naomi's wedding gown as she and Ryan turned back to face the altar. In that moment, Naomi knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together. The past was a shadow that could never be erased. But love, real love, was the light that would guide them through the darkness.